We're turning the clocks forward 1 year to 1986. Following in the footsteps of Tekkhan's Star Force in 1985, the Hudson nationwide Caravan has a new game, and this time it's made entirely by Hudson Soft themselves. Sporting all kinds of innovations and building on what Star Force started, Hudson's own Star Soldier takes off in the summer of '86, officially kicking off the venerable Star Soldier series. Star Soldier was originally released as a console-exclusive title in June of 1986 for Nintendo's Famicom. It would also see release to the MSX computer the same year, and to the NES by way of publisher Taxen in 1989. Many ports of this game also exist, but were released many years down the line. As the second nationwide Caravan game featured by Hudson Soft during its Summer Caravan Festival, it was also the first to feature a seal that denoted its status as the official Zenkoku Caravan certification software for the year 1986, a trend that would continue until 1992. Boasting many similarities to Star Force but many more differences to its obvious inspiration, Star Soldier definitely differentiates itself from Tecmo's original game in many ways. Let's take a closer look. As a vertically scrolling shooting game from 1986, Star Soldier is fairly basic in the gameplay department, albeit with some unexpected complexity thrown into the mix. 8-way control moves the player's ship, known as the Caesar, about the screen at a moderate pace via the D-pad, and players can fire the Caesar's twin cannons with either the A or B buttons. Shots are fired one at a time with no auto-fire function, so a fast trigger thumb is definitely needed to dish out the destruction, at first. Found in every stage, P-tiles can be shot to reveal a power-up module that moves around the screen until it's either collected or scrolls off the playfield. The first pickup increases the Caesar's speed and grants a moderate rapid shot, while the second increases its firepower with both forward and backward firing bullets. The third pickup creates the Star Soldier series' signature 5-way shot, and enhances the Caesar's defenses with a shield that can take multiple hits from enemy bullets, indicated by a rolling visual cue and a BGM change. Collecting further power-ups while shields are active will clear all enemies off the screen, including mini-bosses. When the Caesar shields are engaged, if a player is hit by an enemy bullet, the 5-way spread will be reduced to twin forward and single back fire. Since this means more shots technically land on a target, a strategic bullet collision can make things much easier for the player, especially versus mid and end stage bosses. Of course, getting hit by an enemy of any type results in instant death, so care should be taken. The game flow of Star Soldier is very straightforward. Players blast their way through a total of 16 stages while contending with progressively more challenging enemy waves. Since enemies will appear in a specific sequential order, the faster enemies are dealt with, the sooner harder enemy waves will appear. Dealing with later patterns can be challenging, but Star Soldier also incorporates a unique mechanic to its gameplay. Players can hide under certain areas of the stage, and while shots can't be fired, the Caesar can't be hit either. There are definitely times where this is helpful, but we found the hide mechanic kind of a pain in the butt. There would often be times where we would be trying to take out an enemy wave or hit a special tile only to stop firing and disappear behind the landscape. But flying under the landscape is the only way to get the 5-way spread to re-engage after being reduced by enemy fire, outside of losing all shields and grabbing another power-up. If a panel makes a ricochet sound when being fired at but no special tile appears, flying under that tile will uncover a P, which grants full firepower and shields, even at base power. Knowing where these panels are will surely help in making it further into the game. At stage end, the player squares off against the Star Brains, with every 4 stages ruled by a hulking big Star Brain, complete with multiple turrets and way more hit points. It's always recommended to have twin shots for these bosses rather than the 5-way spread. Speed of destruction is key though, as if the player takes too long, the Star Brain will escape and the player is sent back to the middle of the stage. Boo! So how is it on the whole? Well, Star Soldier is an extremely challenging, and sometimes literally exhausting, game to play, and it takes a truly skilled player to see all 16 stages. Extends help, which is where the scoring really comes into its own even when playing for survival, but some secret 1-up tiles also exist as well, which keep the good times rolling. But unfortunately, the experience really is kind of hampered with the terrain hiding, which ended up being kinda dumb. It basically caused way more deaths and missed power-ups and score points than evasion. Like anything else though, it can be adapted to, making for a fairly decent game in the end, if, of course, you're willing to accept this obviously flawed feature. As a score chaser, Star Soldier has a lot going for it. Never mind the many enemies to kill, there's also a lot of stuff to blow up in the background too. Everything has a point value attached to it, and killing off as much as possible makes for a decent score overall. Some elements, like skulls and those huge eyes at the end of each stage, take quite a bit of abuse before being taken out, but are worth more points in the end. The faster they're taken out, the better. Star Soldier also has all kinds of secret score points as well. Shooting at specific tiles will trigger a Z tile, which can be shot and destroyed for bonus points. The first in a stage, or after death, will be worth 500 points, the second is worth 1,000, the third 4,000, the fourth 10,000, the fifth 40,000, and the sixth a whopping 80,000 points. With extends earned at 50,000, 200,000, and 500,000 points, it's totally possible to get 2 extends by the end of the second stage. As for those big eyes at the end of each stage, if you take one out, it's only 2,000 points, but if both can be taken out at the same time, that can net you 80,000 points. The high score itself is displayed on the title screen and can only be maintained for as long as the power on the Famicom or NES is on. Turn off the system and it's wiped. There are also no leaderboards, so comparative scoring can't really be done short of taking a picture. Star Soldier's presentation is probably best described as average plus. The Caesar itself lacks the kind of detail you'd want out of a shooting game on the Famicom, and the backgrounds are a little on the boring side, especially at first. With the NES version in specific, Star Soldier's visuals were already hopelessly outclassed when it hit the North American scene in 1989, the same year as Twinbee 3 in Japan. But by the same token, the visuals here are unmistakably Star Soldier. It's odd seeing weird skulls and bizarre eyes amongst stars and other mythical beasts on randomly placed tiles, yet somehow it works, and the star brains are pretty snazzy. The sound is probably also the simplest part of the whole package, with only 5 BGM tracks in total. Good players will hear nothing but the power-up theme throughout the whole game though. It's catchy and all, but it'll test the patience of most who hear it. On the other hand though, there are a ton of different explosion sounds, which is pretty neat considering the game's age. Not everything blows up uniformly in real life, so it's neat to hear that kind of variance in such an early game. Finally, aside from some extra credits on the title screen, there is zero difference between the Famicom and NES version, outside of the 3-year difference in the release dates and a really dumb looking cover from Taxan. Yeesh. So, how does Star Soldier stack up? Let's take a look. The Caesar controls well enough, but constantly getting thrown under landscapes is really frustrating. Star Soldier seems like a proper challenging game, but we can't help but feeling like the hiding mechanic is responsible for a lot of pointless grief throughout the whole thing. Learning enemy patterns is key to making it further. In terms of length, at 16 stages, there's an awful lot to play here, especially when factoring in practice to make it further in the game. Weird but effective, Star Soldier's visuals aren't much to write home about, but the star brains are pretty slick. With only 5 BGM tracks, Star Soldier's sound can get tiresome. The wide variety of explosion sounds is a neat touch though. Star Soldier tried, and ultimately failed, to spice things up with the terrain hiding mechanic, proof that sometimes innovation is a bad thing. However, despite this major misstep, Star Soldier ultimately built on Star Force's base mechanics rather well. All in all, Star Soldier was a good starting point for the series, but it also has its problems. Despite this though, Star Soldier is still fairly playable, and it gets a 3.5 out of 5. You can get your very own copy of Star Soldier for super cheap. Auctions will vary depending on completeness, but loose copies often go for less than $10. It's also currently available on the 3DS Virtual Console and maybe, just maybe, the Wii Virtual Console as well, for about $5. If you haven't checked it out already, make sure to take a gander at the first volume in Bullet Heaven Sagas, featuring Star Force. In Sagas Volume 3, we'll be turning the clock ahead to 1987 when we take a look at the first Star Soldier spin-off, Hector 87.